Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Pen Connect. It's a pleasure seeing all of you connecting so well to our authors who come here, and you are helping us bridge this gap between the authors and the readers. Here on Penmancy, that is our endeavor for this particular month to connect you to the authors who have recently written some good stories for you all to read. Today, we have with us a very wonderful and versatile writer, author, influencer, Dr. Harshali Singh. Hi, Harshali.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here and honored. Thank you so much.
Welcome to Penmancy, Harshali. It is an absolute pleasure to have you as a guest with us. And let me tell something about you to our viewers. Professionally, Harshali is a member of the District Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission. As a writer, she has written across a gamut of several literary genres, from poetry to fiction, columns to essays. She is a contributing author in several anthologies. Wow, Harshali, that's something we need to give you a round of applause for. And
Thank
then she has been on the organizing committee of Kavya
Kavya
Kumbh,
Kumbh.
Kavya Kumbh, an international trilingual poetry fest where her poems feature in the anthology Confluence and Shakti. I wonder where you get your Shakti from, Harshali. In addition, she has also won the prestigious Write India Season 2, a short story contest organized by the Times of India Group on Chitra Banerjee Devakurani's prompt. The book was launched by Times Group at the Times Lit Festival in New Delhi and Bangalore. She's also the selling author of best-selling author. I'm so sorry to have missed that. She's also the best-selling author of A Winter to Her Dreams and The Anatomy of Choice, which are the first two books in the multi-book series called the Haveli Series, published by Readomania. Now, as we are all aware, the Anatomy of Choice is the giveaway to our March monthly events. Thank you so much for sponsoring this, Varshali. And I
I'm very
hope
happy
that
to.
all our writers would enjoy reading this book. I would also like to congratulate you on the release of your third book in the Haveli series, A Paradox of Dreams. Harshali,
Yes.
can you please show us the cover?
Oh,
Wow, that is really an intriguing cover, you know.
yes.
Uh, it
Thank
shows,
you.
and as a reader, I would just love to pick up the book just looking at the cover. You know, you
How
seem to be
lovely.
very invested into the A to Z of your books, right from the cover to the printing to the story. uh, thank you so much for coming here. And now we will let's talk about the Haveli series and the paradox of dreams. So
Yes.
first tell us about what is this concept Haveli series, and then
Yes.
about the third book.
So the Haveli series is actually, as you said, a multi-book series. It's a series of 8 books, and the name Haveli series comes from the fact that the Haveli is like a character in the book. Just to give you a little bit of background, the Haveli is actually very much present in today's Chandni Chowk. It's called the Haveli of the 100 Doors. And I happened to visit that Haveli while I was in college. And that time it was getting renovated. And I just entered, you see this facade and you see the tall pillars and everything. And it had a teal door, it still does. And so I just entered it and I saw this ray of sunshine coming in, and it was had this dust motes floating all around me. So it was such a snapshot, I can't tell you, that somewhere it kind of stayed with me, because the thoughts that were going on in my mind were that, this is this old Haveli in this space called Nograha. Nograha is when there are 9 houses. Literally, that is what it means. So, and I think the stories started developing at that point of time. wherein I wanted the Haveli to be the foundation where my stories would be told. And I was very sure at that point that, that this Haveli would feature very prominently in whichever book, if I ever wrote a book. And as I was saying, the thoughts that were in my mind were that, this is this old Haveli, and so many people would have crossed its threshold. And the walls would have heard all the secrets, would know everything that happened to the people that were living inside it. And there's so many people would have come and gone, and it would have seen eras and decades of lives. So if they could talk, what would they say? What would these walls, or what would these pillars, and what would these jalis and chhatris and all these beautiful, beautiful things say about the people that were living in it? And that is how the Haveli series, I think, started in my mind. And then, so when I started writing the book, the first story, I placed the big family with 7 children, parents, and a best friend of the father, who's like a surrogate father to the kids, in that Haveli. So the setting then, kind of was inspired by my own experience and my thoughts and how I felt about that particular moment. And so that is how the setting was, kind of came about. Then came the people, the characters that I created in the Haveli series. They are so it's they're called the Sharma family. There is a mother and a father, Arun and Uma. There is a surrogate father, best friend of the father, who's called Suresh. Suresh uncle, everybody calls him, and he stays with them in the Haveli, because it's obviously, so he stays on the first floor, and the rest of the doors are locked and used as in storage space for the inventory that they get in the shop. So that is their main source of income. Then you have 7 children. You have Aruna, you have Bhavya and Charu. Then you have a brother right bang in the middle called Dheeraj. And then you have Iti, Gina, and Fanny at the end. They're triplets. So, a lot of people have asked me, why have you, made so many children? I think the reason was because we were in a nuclear family. I've lived in a nuclear family, though we were 3 sisters. But there was a sense of loneliness, and I had cousins coming in, and so there was always this need to have a huge family where you would not need anybody. And my parents were in that generation, there used to be 6 7 children. So every time we would get together, all my masis and my aunts and uncles and everybody would come together. I think they don't need anybody, they're so happy and content with their crossing relationships, and everybody knew everybody's peccadillos and everybody's things, and everybody was very interconnected, both at my in my mother's side and my father's side. So I think I missed that. I missed the varied relationships that you form when you live in a big family. Obviously, there are complications, there are negative emotions, there are sibling rivalries, there is competition, there is insecurity. Everything is there, but it is magnified, and it manifests in very different ways according to the characters the personality that you are. So that is how the big family came about. And then I had to narrow down. The first book, A Window to Her Dreams, is about the first daughter, Aruna, and her life. And uh, so so when I was writing about A Window to Her Dreams, I was dealing with while I was in my work, I was dealing with problems, and I was seeing around me a lot of women who were unhappy with the choices that they were making, marriage issues. So Aruna became this, I think, dumping ground for what I was seeing around me, what I was absorbing and observing around me. And so she became the project child. Usually the first child is the project child for each parent. They become key, everything you've learned in your own life as a young mother or a young father, you want your child to be like that. By the second child, you're like, it doesn't matter, do what you want to do. By the third one, you are like, it does, whatever we might do, there's no point. So that is how, I built the three daughters. So Aruna is this fragile tulip who's perfect in every way. She's trying to be, how in our society, in Indian society especially, certain characteristics are given to a woman, a girl, a young girl or a young woman, that she has to defer to her husband. Her whole life should revolve around her family, and she should be self sacrificing, she should be silent, she should be gentle. So she's all this. But her marriage fails, and it fails in such a terrible way, wherein she faces domestic violence and she faces marital rape. So it's those things that I wanted to talk about, because I felt that we were conditioning our girls to be silent. That is what she does. She doesn't tell her family that all this is happening to me. And I remember as a young girl, that is what we were taught, that if anything happens to you, don't talk about it, keep quiet, sahan karo, all that. Sharam is your gehna, and those kind of things, which is all okay, because there is some adjustment which is required. But we should also tell our girls where to draw the line, that boundaries are important, saying no is essential, सेल्फ रिस्पेक्ट एंड बिकमिंग अ डोरमैट में क्या डिफरेंस होता है. वी हैव टू टेल आवर गर्ल्स ऑल दैट. So the story is about that, how she finds herself in a situation where she's put in a corner, where when the divorcee tag is on her, and how does she find the strength to come out of it with the help of her family, which is supportive, and of course she is smart enough, though she is very gentle and kind and everything, but she's smart enough to know that I need to get out of this tag. So she marries this boy that who she knew had a crush on her. So she quickly marries him, knowing that she's not ready for another relationship like that, which we see a lot of women doing at times, whether it is the first marriage or the second marriage, because they don't want anybody judging them, whether it is their relatives or the society. They'll take a quick step, despite knowing that we are not mentally ready and physically ready for that matter. And so that is her journey of realizing that she needs to maximize on her potential to be able to live a happy life. Because if you are not happy, then you are just miserable and you're making everything around you more complex than it needs to be. So that is her story. When
And
I
your
was
second
writing
book, Harshali, your second book, Bhavya,
yeah, yeah,
is very opposite to what her elder sister Aruna is.
yes,
And there's a stark difference between the ideologies both these women showcase.
yes,
So,
that's
how
true.
did
That's
that?
true. Because I've seen all the second child is usually the polar opposite of the first. I mean, I don't know if are you the firstborn or the secondborn.
I'm the first one.
Oh, okay. So then you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the middle child is a sandwich.
Yes. And because they know that all the attention is focused right now on the firstborn, they tend to go the other direction on the other end of the spectrum, and do everything that is possible to snatch that attention of their parents. So inevitably, if you see into siblings, one is the very subdued, the very nice, the very outgoing, and people pleaser, a very kind, different, a more socially acceptable person. And the other sibling, usually the second born, is the more naughtier, the more sab galat kaam karne wala, and those kind of things. I'm the second born, so I can attest to that. So, so that is how I framed Bhavya, wherein she is like the fiery rose, and she is like very aggressive, but she's also very vulnerable. She's like a contradiction, and the reason why I needed her to be that was because the story I wanted to tell through her was that we as a society have moved to a place where there is a lot of exposure to what is very normal in Western cultures, but still in our Indian culture, we don't look at it um, as a natural progression. you know, which is a live-in relationship, which is making choices which are sexual in nature, which might not be, the done thing. Though we know about wife swapping, we know about multiple partners, we know about, all these things, but in our culture, it's never spoken about. It is not something that we talk over coffee about. These are things which are kept under wraps. So I needed her to be slightly over the top, slightly over the slightly aggressive, to be able to carry that story on her shoulders because of the topic that I wanted to talk about, which was threesomes and live-in relationships and stuff like that. So her story is that she makes a decision with her partner, is it okay? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Aparna?
Yeah, yeah. There was a lag in between. No
Yeah.
problem.
Okay.
Let's go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the story I wanted to talk about. And during this time, she finds um, the journal of this courtesan called Noori, uh, whose mausoleum, or earlier her house, used to be close to the Haveli. And so, you know how they've made green areas of all these mausoleums where people walk, and it's like that walking track is there and all that. So it's very close to the Haveli, and so the Haveli and Noori are talking to each other, and so that conversation was very interesting. And plus, I wanted to show. So through her journal, she finds a way to, resolve her issues, which are whether she's comfortable taking these decisions as a Indian girl. Is she's, because every action has a reaction. So the reaction, is she ready for the consequences of those decisions that she's taken? So through her journal, she finds that women are still struggling with this whole thing, even after so many aeons. And they're still trying to figure out if love is more important, or their ambition is more important, or their careers are more important. So what Noori had been struggling with when Delhi was just being set up, she's still struggling with in the 21st century. So, that's how I wanted that amalgam or that juxtaposition to be there for Bhavya.
And the third
Yeah.
book.
Yes. The third book is called The Paradox of Dreams, and it's about the third daughter, Charu. So, in the first book, I had built Bhavya up a little bit. So, it was easier for me to write. But Charu, I had not built up that much because I wanted her to be slightly mysterious and slightly, people would, I was myself wanting to keep her under wraps for a while. How you don't want everything to be revealed. I think in my mind also, I wanted to give her time to percolate and to understand what she would be as a character, as a human being. And so I drew inspiration from all my conformist friends and sister, you know, because she has characteristics of that she's very private, she's very inwards, if you know what I mean. And whilst being very private, she is constantly struggling with insecurity. She has a abandonment issue with her parents. She holds that grudge with them, and that's because she loses her eyesight after 9 years of age, and her parents send her to the grandmother. And so she constantly wonders why they did that, why, what was the reason behind it. She never asked them kabhi bhi directly. Like Bhavya would probably just shout at them, why did you do this? But she would not. She, so there I wanted that each sister or each child should have their own specific personality. And when I was building up these characters, they surprisingly, actually, well, not so surprisingly, I was happy that all the people who said, oh, we like this character, was usually the first, second, third child. That's how they were liking the characters, because I think they could relate to what they were doing. So this book is about Charu, and though she's blind, she also has a gift. She's an empath, so she feels strongly what you are feeling. And through her gift, she solves crime. She's part of a special team. And so she gets a call from her old flame who says that his daughter has been kidnapped. So I wanted to add that element of mystery, thrill, wherein she solves that case, finds the daughter for her first love. So, that's what the book is about. I don't want to say too much, and that's why I'm struggling not to tell you the story.
No, I want the readers and our viewers to, look forward to the book. So we just give them a gist of it, and we move ahead with the other questions. I see that your books are very much grounded in reality, and they are based on your real life experiences. Uh, so when you sit down to write a book, you have all the maze of experiences with you, and there is so much that you want to tell, but
Yeah.
how do you make a structure for it? How do you go, is it step by step, or you just start writing randomly? What do you do when you first sit down to write?
So when I started out, Aparna, I still am essentially a very organic writer. I just start writing a story, and the characters literally take me on their journey. And the third book, Paradox of Dreams, is actually a testament to that, because I was, kind of pulling myself back that, do I write a mystery, or do I just do the relationship angle and her abandonment issues and all that? But literally, the characters grabbed me and said, no, write this. And that is how this book got written, or the story came about. But essentially, even though you are organic, you can't just write. You can't. Otherwise, the story will never end, because once you start writing, there's no end to it. Um, so I had to learn how to form a structure, how to form the arc, wherein you begin very in delight. You begin in delight and end in wisdom. And I love that quote. And I always make sure I start my stories with that. Because as I said, that's very easy to begin writing. You have a very good idea, you know what you want to write, but it's very difficult to end it, to tie all the threads, because it's not like you're sitting and in one go you're finishing the story. You're writing the story over months, and in those months even you are evolving, your perception is changing, your moods are changing. What you're seeing around you is seeping into your writing, and everything that you are doing. So to stay true to your focus is very essential, and that I had to learn. I had to do a workshop for that, wherein I got to learn how to build that structure, how to plot, how to decide, okay, I need to do this, and in this chapter, I will only do that. Because, very frankly, Aparna, I don't think any writer can be one kind of writer. You cannot be only a plotter, and you cannot be only an organic writer. People who are plotters have to learn how to be organic and let the story flow, because otherwise, the story is without heart. And we've all read, if I'm sure, since you write too, you have to be a reader. And we've all read those books where you feel that it's too cut and dried, there's no heart in the story, and you know that it's like a formula that someone has just put in stuff. And we've also read the books where there was no structure, so the story just ambled on, or end mein fatafat usko, it was like the author thought, okay, too many words, now I need to cut it short. So the end is like very squeezed tight, so you don't get you've been building up, and then it just doesn't come to its conclusive end. So that arc, to develop that arc, that takes time, persistence. And with every book, with every story, actually, not even a book, every time you write, you learn, you come away with a new learning. Sometimes you write and you think that, oh, what a nice thing I've written. The next day you read it and say, this is complete rubbish. So you go through all of that, and I think we keep going back to it, primarily because we just want to emote. We want someone to be impacted by what we have written. And I think most writers write for that. I think when that is the greatest appreciation when someone say, "Oh, I loved this character. I loved how you've done this," because you can learn technique. Okay, I think the idea or the will to write has to be there. The rest, I think, you can learn. And if you enjoy writing, you know, you won't think that, oh, I'm spending so much. It's not a chore. So then you enjoy it, you want to do it. Either you're thinking about it, or you're writing it, or you're talking about it. So constantly, it just goes on and on.
Yeah,
It's a
you're
never-ending
constantly
cycle.
looking forward to it. You're looking
Yeah,
forward to it at any point of time,
absolutely.
whether you are at it
Yes.
or you're not. So,
It's like
Harshali,
first
as you
love,
said,
right? It's like, sorry. It's like
yeah,
love.
that's
Writing
what
is like
your
love. You're
analogy is perfect.
constantly, yeah. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted
So,
you.
I think first love, first train, these are those immemorable moments of our life, And you
Absolutely,
have so
absolutely.
vividly caught it. You have given us the great analogy to look forward to, where you
Yeah.
said that writing is like your first love.
Yeah.
Superb, superb. Actually, when you say that you cannot be a plotter and sometimes you have to be an organic writer as well. So, but when you are plotting, a part of you is also plotting. So, you see that the characters are the soul of your book. They are the ones who
Yeah.
are going to tell the story. So, what do you do? Do you believe in, telling about the characters, all the characters, because you're writing a series? So, all your characters get exposed in the first book itself, or you just mention them and then you go step by step, or you don't mention them at all in the first book, and then as the series progresses, they keep coming. So, how is it with the characterization? How do you introduce them?
So in a series, the thing is that what I do, I can't say for everybody, but I'm sure we've read the Mahabharata, we've read Thornbirds, we've read so many, series or huge tomes of the family drama, etc. But what I always feel is that you should stick to your main characters, the two characters or three characters you've decided that you're going to give maximum weightage to. And then there are another three or four characters that you can introduce and keep at the secondary level, wherein the interaction between them is constantly shown, and through that your own the main characters thought process, how they deal with conflict, how they react to things comes out, because you need two people to connect to be able to do that. Otherwise it will get boring. I mean, a short story can still work with two characters, but or even a single character at times, but not full. So I believe. Um, and uh, so when I started writing A Window to Her Dreams, I introduced all the characters in the family, which was the immediate family. But again, as I said, I had graded them in my mind, wherein I knew that Aruna was my main character. Her mother and her interactions with her mother were important, but also her interaction with every sibling were there. So one, the sibling got introduced, and two, sometimes it was just the thoughts that the siblings were happening, seeing what the situation of Aruna. So so that was how I worked on that. This book, Paradox, the third one, is I've moved a little bit away from the family, so I've not discussed the family that much. Like, it's not in your face, but Charu is constantly comparing, which we all do. We see somebody behave in a certain manner, and we say, "Oh, she's doing this, but my mother doesn't do it." So even though she's not, the character is not there, she's constantly linking, her thought process is linked to that character. So she's thinking about her mother, she's thinking about her father, she's thinking about her sister. So she's constantly thinking. So those characters are there, but they're not present. So that was how, because this book had a completely new family that she's dealing with. And so how many characters, the reader will get confused, who is she talking about and all that. So I had to stick. So that is my formula, that I do about three or four characters who are main, sometimes five, and then I kind of bring down the number of space, the amount of space I want to give the secondary characters. And then obviously there are the ones which are in the background, maybe not in the forefront, but they're there. So there's this constant thought process going on.
So
So
you
that
give
is how I,
references to them. You give
yeah,
references to them,
yeah,
but there's no active
yes,
involvement of each of them. Like there could be a reference of Aruna with Charu, but Aruna is
yes.
actually not playing any role in Charu's book
In the book, I mean, she
in the
could
book.
be having a conversation with her mother at a different place, but I would mention that in a line or two. That is all I need. But basically it's the situation, and I see a lot. I mean, I myself do it, that if I'm seeing two people interact, I'll always relate it to what I know. So, that's how I've tried to bring in her family, because eventually it's the Sharma family that we need to be aware of. Plus, they're all growing up. With each book, there is a progression. So I have to maintain that. So the readers need to know, people who are following the series want to know what happened to this person or what happened to Iti. So if Iti and the three triplets are in school in the first book, they have to be in college by the third book. So that progression also needs to be there. So there's a lot of background that is involved when you're writing a series, for sure. I mean, it's not you learn on the go. It's not like, I mean, I wish someone would have told me that the amount of Excel sheets I need to keep, you know but
That's where I was coming to, that how
yes.
many Excel sheets do you maintain? Because you need to, like, you have planned a 7 books in this
Yeah.
particular series. So now
Yes.
you have to keep developing the number of years and
Yeah.
the age,
The
the
number of kids they've
special.
had, like, yeah, at the end of Aruna's book, she has a child, but in Bhavya's and Charu's book, she's having two kids. So so you have to keep track of all that. You can't assume that your reader is silly or doesn't know, because readers aren't. I mean, I put myself in a reader's chair when I'm writing, that if I read this, will this be acceptable to me? And I remember, whenever I'm reading a series, I remember that, okay, this happened, or I go back and check. So if someone does that with my book, I'll be very, very embarrassed if someone tomorrow came up and said, this happened, and how can your timelines not match? So, in fact, this is one of the things that the editor, I requested her. I said, please, I'm keeping a, a track. Please keep a track. Maybe, sometimes you write so many things that you tend to miss it. So we share a Excel sheet and a Google document where we keep referring what happened in the first book, what happened in the second book for each character. So it's fun. I mean, it's an interesting way to develop a character, to see how that
And
character is.
especially when your editor is with you doing it,
Yes,
it is
yes,
more fun. I mean,
absolutely.
and
I've been
anybody
blessed
else
with
doing
the.
it, your editor doing it with you is a better way to go about, I would feel.
Yeah, because eventually, they understand where you are coming from. If you have to develop, or I've been very blessed to have an editor, Indrani Ganguly. She's amazing, and she exactly gets my where I'm going with this story. So she'll know exactly, Acha, you want to say this, and so I it's been
So
a
when
pleasure.
you said, Harshali, that your characters get introduced as and when the story is flowing. So
Hmm.
with your protagonist, the character arc that you are building, does
Hmm.
it begin and end in that same book, or there's a little space that you keep for it to go ahead as well?
So, initially, when you start writing the story, you decide on the conflict you're going to give the character. So, that conflict needs to be decided for sure. You can't end, I mean, at least I have not ended the story for that character, because it's a series, so they are going to be present in all the other books, especially in the last one. uh, so as I mentioned, that every book is a standalone. So if you pick up, suppose, Anatomy of Choice and read it, I don't want the reader to feel, oh, I need to, oh, why is this happening? So I don't want them to be confused, or uncomfortable, that they don't know why this is developing or what was the thread, so they don't have to go and pick up A Window to Her Dreams, or for that matter the third book, if they don't wish to. Of course, my hope is that when you read one book, you get so conscious that or you feel that I want to pick up the other books and read Harshali's novels. So that is of course the end game. But essentially, as I said, that I put myself in the reader's place. So if I pick up A Paradox of Dreams and read that, I can just read that. I don't need to go back to the other books and see how did the story develop so far. So every book has to be a standalone, and then fingers crossed that you want to pick up all the other books as well.
So that you answered two of my questions here. That do you
Okay.
give recaps of the story so far? So that says I think you don't give a recap because each book can be read as a standalone, and if
No, sorry. So what happens is that, as I said, the Haveli is the Sutradhar or the narrator. So every story book or the book will start with the Haveli talking about the character, the family, and essentially about the character whose story it is. For example, for Aruna, he spoke about the family, but also about Aruna. So Haveli is uh, the one that I use to kind of tell you the background, what's happening around this time, what's everybody thinking, what's the family doing. So it's like a narrator to the family's going on. So as a reader, you are able to immediately place yourself there, that okay, I'm here, this is what has happened. And so otherwise the pace becomes very slow. So that was one of the tools I used, that the Haveli became the Sutradhar of all the stories. And so every book starts with like an introduction to the family, so you know who are the characters you are dealing with, which is the mother, which is the father, their names are there, and how they came about to be in the situation they are in. So some bit of it for an introduction, it's like an introduction to the character and to the story. So there's that connection is there. So the Haveli is connection is there, but otherwise if you just read it, it'll just be like a standalone book that you're reading. But again, as I said, it's a Haveli series, so there has to be some connection.
Right. Got it,
Yeah.
got it, got it, got it. When you write one book, you said that you expect the reader to pick up the next also in the series. Okay, so what is it that you do? Do you leave the first book on a cliffhanger so that I have that itch to go and read the second book as well? So what do you do? Do you leave your books on cliffhangers so that the reader waits for the next book?
No, no, nothing like that. As I said, that whatever conflict I have decided for this book gets resolved,
Okay.
whichever way it gets resolved. So when you close the book, you're satisfied that I have read a story which ended. So that feeling that, oh, I don't know what happened and I want to know, that is not there. Uh, but because you build the story with so many characters, you want to know what happens to the other sisters. How have I dealt with those issues or those things? Because constantly, as a sibling, I'm telling you, and personally, because you're constantly thinking about your sister or your brother or your family. So some bit of understanding is there in the reader's mind, that this person is like this, and so this is the kind of problem she had. So when Charu's thinking of Aruna, she's thinking of her marital issues. So as a reader, I mean, I would hope that I've created enough red herring for you to, or like enough hook for you to, as a reader, to go back and find out how her story pans out. And similarly for Bhavya. uh, and so that is what I do. And so far as other, like, there are a few things, as I've mentioned in the blurb also in this book, that Charu always used to call, from the very first book, she used to call the Haveli Anwar. And I had just left that, so it was like an open thread. why does she call it? Not many. I mean, I think I would say about 60% of the readers caught that. So they said that why does she call the Haveli Anwar, and what is the reason behind it? So in this book that gets sorted. So why she calls the Haveli Anwar, and then why did her parents send her to Surat? So that question again gets answered.
So
So
you have personified Haveli here.
yes, I mean, as I said, so the Haveli is like a character in the book.
Character
It's
in
not
your
just
book.
an inanimate stone edifice. It's actually a character that a lot of people related to, and I relate to, as I said, because it comes from a place of um, personal experience. So for me, I wanted the Haveli to have this old British accent. So when you're reading that bit of it, or the Haveli part of it, you don't get the feeling of as if you're reading a very colloquial English. It's very proper. It's very British. It has that tone, or the tonality is slightly towards a more British English. So that's how the difference kind of comes in, because the rest of the book is more colloquial. It's more simple, the language. So that's I can keep talking.
And I'm loving it. And all there are so many questions out here, but I'm so very selfish that I want to get over with my own, and then I'm going to allow them to speak. So I think I'll take the last one. Maybe there are few more, but already I have 7 8 questions from the audiences as well.
How
So one
lovely.
last from my end is, which genres you feel suit well for a series? If someone wants to write a series, what genre should they pick up?
See, I think the series, writing a series itself is a huge playground. I mean, for me at least, I I enjoy writing a series primarily because it allows me to experience, explore, and experiment with a lot of genres. Like the first book is completely relationship and romance, and well, not exactly romance, it's mature romance. It's more mature love, and it's not it's like a second marriage, so it's a different kind of love. uh, and the so it's a drama, it's a relationship drama. And the second is about taboo subjects, about things that we don't want to talk about. And the third one is a mystery or a thriller. And so the fourth one that I'm currently plotting and thinking about is going towards the realm of horror, or towards ghost stories and all that. So I don't know. That's what I said. It's so writing a series. I'm sure. I mean, I don't think. I
The
very
fourth book.
frankly feel, unless someone is very sure that we want to write only in this genre and we're not comfortable writing in others, only then. But I think you have that. Someone is writing a series, like giving you that space um, to explore whatever you want to explore. Like during the COVID time, I mean, I wrote short stories in mythology, in historical fiction, even an erotica I wrote. So, I mean, I feel there is so much more to explore, there's so much more to do. Why would I want to limit myself? So writing a series gives you that opportunity.
But
But again, it's very personal. I feel everybody has the they have to decide for themselves what fits them the best.
so I have somehow tried to contain myself and not ask too many questions, but you have answered much beyond what I would have expected on any normal date with an author. So there are few questions on the other end from the audiences, and I'll one by one showcase it here.
Right.
So, yes, Lalita is asking us, when you write a series, how do you maintain the continuity if you have many characters from the same family?
Thank you, Lalita. That's a excellent question, and thank you so much for joining in. First of all, it's so kind of you to come and join and hear and give me the time. So, to answer your question, to maintain continuity, very frankly, as I was talking, I have several Excel sheets, several lists, and I am very frankly, think I have this OCD of making lists. I love making them. They're like this, they're like the CT of the pressure cooker for me. So every time I'm stressed or I'm tense or whatever, I just start making lists. And so my family knows, okay, now she's, you know, give her space, get away from her. And so
Actually, we
lists
love your
is,
similes. We love your similes, and I hope you explore the humor genre as well in this series
oh, that's
somewhere.
one genre that I'm very, like cautious with, because writing humor is really difficult. What I might find humorous, you might not. So,
No, no, but you really have that comic sense. So you must somewhere down the
thank
line, the
you.
sixth book,
Thank
seventh
you.
book.
uh, Fingers crossed. But yeah, to answer Lalita's question, I think that is how I do it, Lalita. I try to maintain continuity for my characters and their evolution through, lists and through a lot of background that I make for them. And the kind of, registers and copies and papers I've filled with them, I think only 10% gets translated to the book. The rest of it is all in my head. Hence, I can talk so much about my
Now, this is
characters,
very
because
scary. This is very scary. So
no,
I
but
think your
then
author
because
will
you
also do very well.
so as sometimes I feel that people will say, stop talking, because I can actually, because I know these characters so well. It's like I know how they're going to react and what they're going to do, and so it feels as if I know I'm their best friend. I hope that
Urvi,
answers her question. Yeah.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
I absolutely. I think Lalita, you can let us know uh, whether your question has been answered or not in the comment section. Urmi wants to know, as you spoke about some workshop that you did. So she
Yeah.
wants to know how important is it for a writer, aspiring writer, to attend tutorials, workshops, courses.
Huh. Does It doesn't actually, because see, okay, look at writing like you would look at driving. When you learn how to drive, you have to learn how to drive. You like the road, you like the concept of driving, but you need to know the rules to break them. So anything that you learn, whether it's music, whether it's dance, whether it's cooking, you had to start somewhere. The passion is there, but you need to know the how to build the groundwork. Otherwise, then it'll just be a hobby. It will never rise above. And it can be, if that is what you like, and if that is, it's like it's like a cathartic experience for you, then it can be that, if that is what you wish. But I feel that I would always equate it that I would want to know the rules of how to do this correctly, and then I can break them, because I know how to then protect myself. So I think therein, I think my need to be cautious, and as a woman, I think I've been conditioned like that, that I like to, know how to do those things correctly, and then I can, kind of take my creative license liberties. So I think it's essential. I personally feel that you need to know what you're doing, uh, and then do it, and then you can make your own choices, whether it fits you, if you want to change it, if you want to make additions, subtractions, that's your choice. But basic pata hona chahiye. uh, I don't think it kind of holds down on your spontaneity. No, not at all. Because it's, as I said, that no author can be one kind of author. You need to know how to do both things. You need to plot and also be organic. So again, that to reach that balance is slightly, it takes a bit of time, it takes effort, and takes dedication. But what doesn't? Everything that you've learned with a lot of hard work and with a lot of effort. So I guess it's just one of those things.
Correct. Lalita has too many questions. She's a lovely girl.
I'm glad. Yeah.
Yes. So I think you have touched upon this topic while we were talking, that you write about women issues and the challenges
Huh.
they face, and were any of these stories inspired by real life incidences?
Lalita, I don't think I can, as of now, I don't think I can write stories that that I am not, um, they're not inspired by, my own life, but certainly these are issues that I see around me. I see in our society. They might be the ills of the society or the underbelly of society, which I want to discuss and explore and question. So everything I write about is it comes from a place. It comes from a personal place, first of all, and it comes from a place of anger because I really want to literally, you know, uncover this need for society to hold down. I mean, the fact that people don't want to talk about these things in today's world, that women are still being subjugated to such horrible things, and so all these things. And I think because I feel so passionately about these issues, I want to write about it. I want, if my story touches or is relatable to even one woman out there who's probably facing it, and she reads the story and feels that, you know, it relates to it only, that's enough. That's actually enough for me. But I think it's, yeah, it's from a very personal space, for sure. Yes.
Anamika would like to ask you how much time you dedicate to research.
So yes, research is another thing that we didn't talk about, but yes, very essential, because everything you write about has to come. There has to be a sanctity which is maintained. You can't just write whatever you feel like, or what is your opinion on those things, especially when you're writing about um, serious things like, or social issues like domestic violence, about threesomes, or about kidnapping, or other things which are included in the book. So okay, for if I just talk about the paradox of dreams, she's an empath, and she's blind. So I have to know how she would react to certain things. um, I can't just write whatever comes to my mind. I have to know exactly how a blind person would climb the stairs, how they would look for a glass on a table, how they would, how they would feel if they suddenly get up in the night, and it's completely dark. So how do they relate to their surroundings? So all those, to reach a stage where I'm confident enough to write about it, I have to research. I have to talk to people. I interview people. I go and spend time, in spaces where I get to see these people. I try and read as much as possible. There are so many articles with, available online. So research is the mainstay, I feel. Once you have research, once you're sure about your topic, only then start writing. Essentially, if you see, a lot of women writers write about family, write about, like I did. I wrote about family, I wrote about relationships, because we are very sure of that subject. We have been uh, living in that space for a very long time, so we are very sure of that. When I had to write about domestic violence, I had to read a lot. I had to read cases. I had to see pictures. I had to see what kind of bruises there are. So everything has, you need to process everything. Your story has to become your whole world, and then you write it, and then you make it better, because the first draft comes, it flows out. But it's when you start editing it. Self editing is very essential, because when you're editing it, you realize, oh, yahan pe, there's less information. How can she do that? And if she's blind, how is she doing that? She can't do that. She can't see color. So how will she explain? So because she's been able to, she's lost her eyesight at 9 years of age. she knows what red looks like or she knows what green looks like. So she's not. But some, if I were to write a person about who was congenitally blind, they wouldn't be able to see color. They would only be able to sense and touch. So all these things do matter. And also I feel because we are very particular about uh, that the reader shouldn't feel that, oh, she's just written a fluff thing. I think वो मेरा personal वो है कि I don't want anybody to read my book and think she's not researched, that it should not be in your face, where it should not be an information dump नहीं होना चाहिए. But when you're reading it, you should be able to say, okay, she knows what she's talking about. That's about it.
Yeah, that's a very thin line that you need to.
Yes, yes.
One more question I have from Lalita. She, when you initially planned 7 books, did you chart out the character arc of each of the protagonists?
So there are 8 books right now, because there are 7 children and one book for the parents. So 8 books in total as of now. Uh, but मेरे को कई बार लगता है that Suresh uncle also deserves a book. But we'll see. As of now, 8 books. Depends on where I'll reach and when I'll bring them out. But yeah, so as of now, 8 books. And the story, see, I knew the stories that I wanted to talk about for sure. I knew that the stories that I have chalked out for each character. But as I was saying, that we live in a active world, we are actively living our lives. So inevitably all these issues around us, whether it is politics, whether it is the war, whether it is people, whether it is just anything that is happening around us, inevitably influences us as writers and as creative people and as sensitive people. So how can that not translate into your writing? I feel inevitably it will impact your writing. So I have the basic idea of what I want to write about for each character, but it keeps evolving, and I can see that. I can see the books evolving, as I'm writing them, because I'm also evolving. I'm also growing older, and you know, inevitably all these things do seep into my writing. Um the kind of things I see around me and our society, and how things are panning out for women, especially. So my books become very women centric. They, I think that is where it stems from. The fact that I deal with a lot of people, there is a lot of interaction, there is a lot of engagement. And I've always felt that women are somehow, right now at least, very dissatisfied with the pace that the society is moving at, especially for women, how they see women, especially their security, especially the how they are, because we've taught our girls to stand up and say no, or stand up and question that, why are you doing this to me, or to question patriarchy. But we are still a slight, not exactly a slight, but quite a far distance away from teaching our boys that, it's okay if, that you share the load, literally. And so the gender imbalance abhi thoda zyada dikhta hai, because now girls are saying, they're getting up and saying that, okay, this is not going to work for us. And the boys don't know how to handle that for the moment. But I see the younger generation, I see the youth, and I see a lot of hope. I hope it's the pace is slightly slow, but I think we'll get there.
Wonderful, wonderful, Harshali. You took us to so many topics, and how easily you spoke on each one of them. And we loved the way you tried to accommodate all our queries into this one session. So, on behalf of Penmancy, congratulations once again. Once again, could you just show this book, because there were a few
Yes.
people who joined us later on. So, Paradox of Dreams has
Dreams.
been released very recently. I I urge my viewers, our viewers, to go and read the book, get enthralled by her writing, and leave a feedback to her, reviews for
Yes.
her on various platforms like Penmancy and Goodreads and Amazon. Harshali, there has been lot of other positive, encouraging comments for you. I
Thank you.
wish you go back to them in the group and you please check them out. I have been not been able to project all of them here. I could just take up the questions which were there, but
Yeah.
I'm sure you would love to interact with each of these people individually. So please go
I will.
back.
I will. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me, Aparna. I had a wonderful time chatting about the characters, and you've been amazing. And you've been such a supportive moderator. Thank you so much for doing this. And a very, very big thank you to Penmancy and to Kajal, who's allowed me to come on her platform and talk about my book. And thank you, a very an extra big dollop of thank you to the listeners and people who tuned in today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you all for the next session, the announcement of which has already been made. And we hope that you all show the same kind of enthusiasm to all the guests who grace us with their presence and their insights on this platform. Till then, good night. See you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.